Yo, I'm here at Mohican. The race starts in like 15 minutes. Gotta do the ride over to the start. Last year, I freaking forgot my timing thing and had to sprint back. This year, I feel a lot more prepared, honestly. So we're gonna see how this goes today. We're doing the 100 mile, which is something I've never done before. I've done the 60 before like twice now, I think. So got the new Karoo. We're gonna test it out today. See how it does. But anyway, 98 miles, 11,000 feet. Hopefully this computer doesn't die. These are notorious for not having good battery life, but I'm hopeful that they improve them. We got the Epic 8 with the new revolve control SLs. I have never ridden them before. We're about to experience it for the first time. So this race, like, I always park like a mile or so away from the downtown and ride in. Last year I forgot my ankle thing like 5 minutes before the race started, and I literally had to sprint, and I still barely made the start, but that was crazy. Mohican is in Loudonville, Ohio. It's an NUE series race. This is the second one of the year for me. This one I've done, that was my third time doing it, right, Chase?
Yeah, I think so.
But this is the first time I've done the 100-mile distance. 2 years ago, they made the 65-mile course like almost as hard as the 100-mile, though. I left the shop, got there around midnight, slept in my car, and then woke up and started getting ready. The race kind of starts off, the start line and the finish line are separate. And so I basically was kind of car camping at the finish line. And what you gotta do is you ride a mile or so into downtown Loudonville. And that's always a stressful situation. And this year it was super calm. There's a lot of people. It's a mass start. One thing they do that I'm not a huge fan of, but it's kind of fun at the same time, so I respect it. They mass start the 100-mile race and the 65-mile race at the same time. So you just have no clue who you're racing against at all. It's just totally, like, I just assume that, like, whenever I'm out there, I was just like, basically just totally focused on my own race, because the people that you're with might be doing a 40-mile less distance than I was doing, which always turned out to be true. There's a split at the 60 mile, and like, it was just funny, like, the people I was with, they were like, oh, you're doing the 100, like, they didn't even realize. Anyway, back to the start. So it was wet, and it was actually raining a little bit at the start. It wasn't too bad, but it had rained a lot, so the course was muddy the whole day. I opted to run the Schwabel Racing Ralph combo. And I think it's safe to say that that was the best mud tire I've ever used, if that makes sense. I think that in wet conditions, these tires really shined well. I felt confident, like how muddy the course was. Both the 60 and the 100-mile courses like basically run the same course for the first half, but I was really proud that my single track section, I actually beat my time from last year whenever I was running the shorter race. So I thought that was really cool. And I do attribute a lot of that to the tires. If you are looking to buy a set of Schwabel tires, definitely hit us up at thebicyclestation.com. We got tons of stuff in stock. And if you don't see something you're looking for, shoot us an email. If you want a custom bike like this, shoot us an email or DM me on Instagram, whatever works for you. In the single track section, I knew I was in like the top 20 guys or so, which again is misleading because it's actually like who knows which race they're in. But I knew I was in a good spot, so I was feeling pretty good. This race specifically, I had me and Michael Leach, who we do the podcast together, helped me develop a carb plan, which I think was extremely successful. Beta fuel gels. I was eating 80 carbs an hour, and then we were sipping on, I had 2 beta fuels here and here, and I would sip to push it up to something in the 90 to 100 range, depending on how I was feeling. One way I did that was at the start of the race, I ate one, and then every half an hour I would just eat another one. So I was constantly cycling through my target of 80 an hour through the gels and then supplementing with the bottles of beta fuel. I've never really planned that out before, and I felt better than ever. I realized that there was races where I would just overdo it and overcarb and then totally like screw myself over. So like I really thankful to Michael for kind of working with me on that and helping me figure that out. I felt like I was in a really good spot. I was with 2 single speeders. I've always said this, just ignore the single speeders. You're not racing them. You're gonna hurt yourself trying to match their pace. It doesn't make any sense. And you kind of come out after the horse trail climb. There is a little bit of a road section, and then you hit what is, in my opinion, the hardest part of the day. It's like very rocky and sketchy single track. I've seen people ride it, and if it was dry, I would probably try to ride it. But in the wet, I just don't like, I'm not a big fan of risking dangerous stuff in a 100-mile race. Like, it's not worth the risk. Like, you could ruin your 10-hour day and over what is effectively a 30-second time saving. I realize that that is important, but I just with how wet it was, I wasn't really that interested in risking it on the rocks. After the aid station, you kind of ride on the road and then you get back into the trail. I realized that I hadn't been really drinking a lot of water. The beta fuel regiment, I was so focused on doing that I just didn't drink any water, and I had a full hydration pack. But the reason I knew I wasn't drinking water is I actually started to cramp up a little bit, and I basically just started chugging water for the rest of the day. I ended up emptying 3, what are those, like 2 liter?
Yeah, 2 liter.
So I ended up drinking 6 total liters of liquid from mile 40 to mile 100, but I stopped cramping.
Big water boy there.
Well, yeah, it was like, it almost felt like an emergency, because like here I am like 40 miles into this race and I'm cramping, and I'm like, oh no. And so getting the water flowing again fixed that problem. Kind of the lowest point of the race for me whenever I was cramping up, because not only was I cramping up, but like 3 or 4 guys passed me, and I was like, dang it, this isn't going well anymore. And at the time, I was still cruising, like we were above like 10, I think I was still sitting around an 11 mile an hour average at this point. Making really, really good pace right now. I think I might get 3 hours and 35 miles to like 11.5 miles an hour average, so really good start to this day. So like, I was feeling pretty good about the pacing and everything that was happening. The next part of the race is a lot more gravelly. And this is where actually it's kind of funny. There's a split. The 60 milers go left, the 100 milers go right. And that's where, for the first time in the race, you actually knew like, oh, these are the people that I'm working with to ride through the end with. And that was actually super fun. I met a young kid. I'd have to look up his name in the results, but I met a kid from, man, he might have been from like, I think he was from Oregon. Just so we're clear, Mohican like is a pretty nationwide event. There was people from Canada in the top 10. There was people from West Coast, East Coast. It's a pretty big event. I know it doesn't seem like it is, but it really is. Anyway, that kid was super fun to hang out with. I caught up to him, I think, because he said he made a wrong turn or something. I can't remember. We were on the private property loop. You turn off, ride a gravel road, do like a loop, and then you get back and you ride back north or south, I guess. I caught back up with him at the aid station there, and this is the only time in the race where all the people at the aid station, like, oh, these are the people who are racing the 100-mile race. That was like the most further out aid station, but I also thought it was the most fun aid station. Huge shout out to all the people who are volunteering at these events. Like, it's like a NASCAR pit crew out there. Like, they'll like grab whatever, fill it up, and I just always am really appreciative of those people working the aid stations at the NUE races. So then from that point, this is where it gets kind of tricky, because you circle back and then you're back on the same course as the 65 miles race. And then this is where you get a false sense of security, because as I was in the fast guy 100-mile echelon, you know, like I was still like shooting for like possible top 10, you know. This is where it gets tricky though, because as I'm riding up this climb, I'm just passing people left and right, but they're actually 65-mile racers. And so you get this false sense of security, like, oh, I'm doing so well, I just passed another guy. And I started counting in my head, like, because I kind of knew where I was. The people at the aid station told us like what place we were in. And I was like, okay, the aid station just told me I was like 14th or 15th. And then I would pass somebody and I'd be like, okay, now I'm in 13th. And I'd pass somebody and I'd be like, okay, now I'm in 12th. And I just kept doing that, and I realized like, oh crap, actually I've just been passing 65-mile racers this whole time. And I kind of felt silly, but I keep saying this and I didn't follow my own rules, y'all. You gotta focus on your own race in these things because it's so random sometimes, and you can't, in a 10-hour race, it's almost useless to like worry about what somebody else is doing. If you're enjoying this kind of endurance mountain biking content, I got some news for you. We have a race that we're putting on in Brown County, Indiana, September 7th. It's the Hoosier Downcountry Endurance Mountain Bike Race, 77 miles. I think there's less than 10 miles of road in the course, so it's 77 miles of real mountain biking. If you're interested in an endurance mountain bike race, please check it out. I'll have the link below, and we will be doing some course previews for that in the future too. So Hoosier Downcountry, September 7th, definitely don't miss it. So the race finishes up, the 100 mile, you do a second loop of the full Mohican trail. This is where, I'm not gonna lie y'all, I got really tilted. I was pretty frustrated. This is the hammerhead that I used during the race, the NUE Hammerhead Crew 3. Let's talk about a positive thing that happened. This bike computer, I finished the race in just barely under 10 hours. This bike computer lasted the full 10 hours and then had 36% battery left. So not as good as Wahoo or Garmin, but reasonably good in my opinion, like totally functionally good. I don't have to worry about my crew dying anymore because that was kind of the biggest problem with the second one. Here's where the reason I got tilted, and I was mad, like I was just so frustrated. So the crew, whenever I went to start the second loop of the mountain bike trail, like I've already ridden this loop once, the crew put me back at like mile 15 or something. And so my Climb Pro reset, it went from having like 1 or 2 climbs left to having 40 climbs left because it put me back at the start of the race. As I made it to the second loop, the crew just decided that I had started over because it rerouted me. I've been trying to communicate with them, and I will hopefully be able to come to a solution with this. There's got to be a way to turn off the reroute feature for this computer to be good for endurance mountain biking racing. I think everything else is sorted. The map screen is very good, and if not, I think it's probably the best map screen in the market. But until the map, I just need it to not be rerouted. There's too many variables with base maps and where people draw routes. Like, it needs a human touch, and I am a human and I can look at it and say, yeah, I don't need to reroute, I just need to turn left. But like as it reroutes, it tries to like spin you around 360 or whatever.
So you just need it to follow the route.
I don't want it to follow any route, I just want to see it. I just want to look at a map and see where the line goes. Because you know how like...
Did you not have the race route downloaded?
No, I did have the race route downloaded.
So if you don't want to follow a route, don't download the route.
It needs the route whenever you go off course. Because like you've seen races where the GPS doesn't line up with the base map, right? And then it tells you you're off course. That needs to be turned off because whenever you go off course, it tries to reroute you back onto course.
Got it, okay.
Instead of just keeping me rolling to the last 20 miles of the single track, it restarted me. Because it rerouted me back onto the first part of the race instead of just keeping me on the second half. And the reason that's so tilting is because I had just worked my way through, it's like 4 climbs to go, 3 climbs to go, and then all of a sudden it was like all my data was screwed up and Climb Pro was like, you have 100 climbs left. And like, I know this is a small thing, but it really did affect me mentally at the end of a 10-hour mountain bike race. It just was not something that I wanted to be worried about. I am trying to hopefully talk to them about getting that corrected because it's so simple. I just need it to turn off. Like, just let me make a decision if I'm off course or not. I don't want the computer to make a decision if I'm on course because the computer's data isn't 100% accurate, and I hope that we can get that fixed because otherwise I really enjoyed using the computer. I was able to finish the race in just right at 10 hours. I think I finished in like 9 hours, 57 minutes. I think that was a pretty good result for me with where I'm at in my training. I finished 14th in open and I think like 17th overall. It's a pretty stacked, well-attended race, and I think that is a really, really good result for me. Maybe one of my best results. Even though the placing's not very high, I was definitely having a good day. The new Specialized Epic 8, and I made 2 changes to this bike before this race, or I guess technically 3 changes. Change number 1, I switched out my stem for this zip stem because this is like a really sturdy computer mount, and I felt like this was better to put my camera on, which I think worked out really, really well. Change number 2, I switched out my grips to these ODI Reflex grips. These worked really well, and I was gonna give these like an A+ glowing review, and I probably still am gonna do that. What happened though is in the last like 3 hours of the event, the waffle pattern had started to like press, yeah, do you see that? It just kind of, it started to become painful. The vibration dampening and control from these, excellent. I was super happy with it. But then I specifically remember just the grip had branded my hand and it was like painful to hold on to. Not extremely painful, it was actually more comfortable than a stiff grip, but it was just sharp pain instead of like a vibration pain. The vibration dampening from this is like excellent. And if you guys watched the Roval Control Team Edition video, you know that the Mohican 100 was also my first ride on the new team issue wheels. First of all, 100-mile mud race, no problems at all. Second of all, this is the first time I've ridden a lot of really fancy wheel sets. Immediately was able to tell that this wheel set was lighter than any of those. It just spun up so fast. Like every climb was just, I could feel the weightlessness of them. I was super, super happy, especially in such a long event with so many like it was like a 12,000 foot climbing day. I would say kudos to Specialized on that. It seems like such a marginal weight difference, but I really did notice it, and I am very impressed with this wheel set. Mohican race, I think, was definitely a success for me. Had a fun time. Mohican's always a race that I've never done it and not been frustrated about something. It's just so hard. Even though I'm so familiar with that area, I went to Denison University that's like 35, 40 minutes away from the trail. I go in feeling so confident and I'm so familiar, but despite all of that, it just ends up being more challenging than I expected, even though I know what I'm getting into. And
as a wife who's gone to this race with you multiple times, every single year you finish, and as soon as you finish you're like, I'm never doing this race again because you're just like so destroyed and you've had such a bad time, and then 2 days later every year you're like talking about the next year.
Well, like it really,
you have the same reaction every time.
It's like after the race ends, I never feel good about my result, and like this year I definitely felt better about my result. It takes like a week or so for you to kind of process like what it was you did, and then it's like, oh, actually that was really good, you know? And then that's whenever I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go back. It's only 4 hours away. Like I race endurance mountain bike races. One of the premier endurance mountain bike races is literally a 4-hour drive. Like I'm not gonna just not go, you know? It's really hard for me to skip it. There's not that many of these. So next one on the calendar is Wilderness 101, and I've never done that one before, and I'm currently entered in the 100-mile race. I am super excited. I was entered 2 years ago, but I ended up getting COVID and had to miss it. So first experience at the Wilderness 101. I think we're a month and a half, 2 months away from that one, right?
Yeah,
maybe like a
month and a half.
Yeah, it's coming up quick.
No, it's 2 months. You're
2
good.
months. If you guys have done that, hit me up, give me some recommendations. I've watched some really cool videos about Wilderness 101. There's especially a video where this guy did like 3 loops of the course that I thought was super cool. Yeah, that was Mohican. Excited for Wilderness, and then we got Shenandoah in the future. We'll definitely film both of those, or I'll
And
make
then Hoosier Down Country.
Yeah, and Hoosier Down Country. Pisgah 111 too, I think, is on the calendar.
October.
That's far away. Yeah, far away. Thanks for checking out this video, and buy stuff from us, because that's the way you can support the channel. We appreciate it. We'll see you all in the next one.